Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, blah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, statements coming at ya, statements coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Blog Talk Radio.
Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Today is Monday, November the 12th, 2018. I'm your host, Scott Thomas Outler, and we'll be live with you here for the next hour and a half from Atlanta, Georgia. It is raining and cold outside here today over on the East Coast, and I know that's quite a different story from what is happening over in Northern California on the West Coast with the wildfires that have been raging here recently. So wanted to extend thoughts and prayers to anyone affected by those tragedies that are currently ongoing over in that part of the country, and just wishing everyone well who happens to be listening right now. So that song kicking off the show that we just heard was Summer's End by Spectralux, who is going to be on the show with us this evening. In the next segment, we have Peter Rowitz and Peter Norman from the band. They're going to be on this evening talking about their latest album and have several other tracks from some of their albums to play throughout the night, and we'll talk to them about their music. So looking forward to that. Also wanted to mention some of the other guests that are going to be on future episodes. Coming up next Wednesday on November 21st, going to have a good friend of mine, Don Biequez, who is a poet currently living in France, but originally from Cape Town, South Africa. He was on a short segment a few weeks ago, briefly talking about his latest book that he co-authored with 3 other South African poets. It's called In Pursuit of Poetic Perfection. And so he's going to be joining us for a full interview on the 21st to talk more about that collection as well as some of his other books. Also have Ruth Wyndham coming up on a show at the end of this month. She is a poet and also the host of a event held here in Atlanta for over 10 years now at the Callan-Wold Fine Arts Center, which is just an amazing venue. I've had the pleasure of reading there a couple of times. So looking forward to talking with her as well about her work and the press she runs and those events that she hosts in the summer at Callan-Wold. And then to kick off December, I'm going to have the publishers of Transcendent Zero Press, Dustin Pickering and Z.M. Wise, coming on the show to talk about their press that they run down in Texas, as well as the journal Harbinger Asylum that they put out on a quarterly basis. Dustin Pickering and Z.M. are both amazing poets, so a lot of good guests lined up here over the next few weeks. So I've been off here for the last couple of weeks, been working on some other projects, so it's nice to get back on air and kick things back off here with Songs of Selah. Been writing a lot and had a lot of poems published here in the last couple of weeks that I'm going to talk a little bit about here momentarily. But another item that I did want to mention up front was the fact that with the holidays coming up, I'm going to be running a holiday sale on some of my books. They're all available on Amazon, but I do have copies of a few of them on hand right now. So I've put together a bit of a package deal here. Mentioned Transcendent Zero Press a moment ago. They actually published my debut chapbook back in 2015. So I'm going to run a copy of that, as well as my book Chaos Songs from Weasel Press, and my book Happy Hour Hallelujah from CTU Publishing, and then my latest book Abstract Visions of Light, which was released just a few months ago at the beginning of August. That's put out through Alien Buddha Press. So I have all 4 of those books right now, along with a couple of broadsides from 28th Street Press up in Pennsylvania, and a couple of other goodies in the package that can all be purchased for $30. So if anyone is interested in picking that up for yourself, or perhaps as stocking stuffers coming up for Christmas in December, please just get in touch with me through my website, 17numa.com. There's links there to all the books, and also a post up recently with all that information about the holiday sale. Would love to get some of those books sent out to you. We could work out a deal through PayPal. You can also buy them individually, but that package deal, probably the best way to go if you're looking to get familiar with my work, or if you already are familiar with it and would just like to help support independent artists and independent publishers. That support is always greatly appreciated. And speaking of my books, I thought here in this first segment of the night, I'd talk about a few of the poems that have been published recently in a few different journals, and maybe read a couple of poems. The first of which is a piece called It's a Matter of Record/Opinion. This one is included in my book Abstract Visions of Light, and was also recently published in a magazine out of India called Culture Cult, put out by Jagannath Chakravarty, which is just a beautifully put together magazine. He's a fantastic artist, and the detail that he puts into every issue is pretty spectacular honestly. So I wanted to give him a shout out this evening and read this piece. It's one of 3 that I have in that magazine, called It's a Matter of Record/Opinion. Tell me something meaningful and make sure I believe it before you double down on my debts. Then dance in your pride and vanity. Then dance in your ignorance and vanity. Then dance in your shaken identity. Then dance in vanity. Pat yourself on the back, pat me on the back, pat myself on the back, pat you on the back, pat us on the back, pat me on the back, pat them on the back. I take it all back. I take it all. Thin air, thin air, thin air. There are ghosts in the system, ghosts in the visions, ghosts in the world, ghost in your pores, ghost pouring out, smoke in your eyes, smoke in your hair, smoke on your tongue, fire in your lungs, fire in your heart, fire, fire, fire always burns. Thin ice, thin ice, thin ice. All your sins have been collected from a life you didn't live. So pray to the gods of big data and confess that your days have been numbered, drifting through the endless stream, scrolling through the timelines of life, searching for the source to find connection. Tell me something meaningful in every single moment and make sure I buy, but never sell. Out and down, down and out. Never doubt, never doubt, never doubt that there is destiny and there is dust in the thin air, thin air, thin air. So that was It's a Matter of Record/Opinion, included in my book, Abstract Visions of Light. Just another quick note on that book. Wanted to shout out to Red Fox and Jay Miner at Alien Buddha Press for releasing that title here recently. Also has an amazing abstract painting on the cover by Red Fox, as well as a series of black and white photographs taken during one of his hitchhiking trips across the country. This particular series was taken in Slab City out in California while he was venturing through those parts. So that book was released in August, and here just recently I've been in touch with a publisher out of India called Cyberwit, and we're going to be working on my next book, bringing that out in the future. So I've been putting the manuscript together and getting that prepared. So I thought I'd read just a couple of pieces from that. The book's going to be called Of Sand and Sugar, and it's going to have a cover by Misty Milwee, the great artist and poet out of Alabama. Hoping to get her on for a future show to talk about her work, and really excited that she's going to be collaborating with me on the cover of the book. Looking forward to sharing more details about that soon. And this is one of the pieces from the book. It originally appeared at Dissident Voice, where I'm a weekly contributor, called Alms of Ouroboros. Those politics will eat you for breakfast and leave the empty plate smeared with grease. That's not God in your needle. That's not love in your message. That's not virtue in your stained glass. That's not power in your eyes. I can see through you the same way I can see straight through myself. Just another tail chasing itself around the cycle that we have suffered and survived before. Mounds of dirt, vials of blood, bones and ash piled high atop the earth. Anthills, molehills, kingdoms, fiefdoms, empires are all, sooner or later, kissed by their sacrifices and smashed by the hands of time. That's not gold in your teeth. That's not love in your mission. That's not honor in your oil fields. This is not your reaping of wheat. And that was, once again, Alms of Ouroboros. Also, I've had some poems published recently in a publication out of Mauritius called the Pangolin Review. Their new issue was just released this past week, and I'm going to read a piece that appears in that. But before diving into that poem, I wanted to mention that if you're listening to Songs of Selah this evening or later on the archive through the Blog Talk link, please do look up at the top of the screen with the button that says subscribe and just click on that. That way you can get into the loop with emails for any future episodes, all those guests I was talking about earlier. You can also go and find the past episodes. Recently had Vlada Mars, the great pianist living up in Vancouver, Canada, who was on the show, and I recommend checking that one out. We had a great conversation about art and music and her journey from Serbia over to Canada and all the amazing work she's doing to inspire people with her beautiful skills. So please do hit that subscribe button and get in the loop for everything that's going to be coming out through 17 Numa Radio. Also, you can find me at my personal website, 17numa.com, where I have links to all of my poetry and essays, interviews, live performances, and once again, links to those books that I mentioned earlier. Speaking of live performances, I was just at the Phoenix and Dragon bookstore this past Friday, reading at the event hosted by Michael Burke there, which is always a great time. A couple of videos from that performance are at 17 Numa. And then I'm also going to be reading tomorrow night at Johnny McCracken's Irish Pub in Marietta, Georgia, at the Playpen Open Mic event that's held the second Tuesday of every month. I've been going to that for the past year. Joellen Woodell is the host there, and it's always a fun time. So anyone living in Atlanta that might want to get out into the rain tomorrow evening and make that journey, it's in Marietta, Georgia. Hope to see you there. So this last poem I'm going to read before I bring on the guests for the evening is from the Pangolin Review. It's also going to be in the upcoming book through Cyberwit. It's called Torn. And the angel of desolation cracked open the sky. O vanity of vanities, you will be the death of me. But my heart was always pure. My father told me so. And the angel of devastation ripped open the chest. O love and peace, you never saw the best of me. But my heart was always true. My father told me so. And the angel of damnation broke open the earth. Oh, fire and blood, you will be the final drug. But my heart was always good. My father told me so. And the angel of destiny tore open the soul. Oh, promises and prophecies, you have had your way with me. But my heart was always clean. My father told me so. So that was Torn, recently appeared at the Pangolin Review, also coming up in my future book of Sand and Sugar. So that's going to do it for the poetry portion of the evening. And up next, after the break, we're going to have Peter Rowitz and Peter Norman from Spectralux coming on to join us and talk about their work. But before I bring them on, I'm going to play another track from their upcoming album. And this one is called Obsidian Daydream. Enjoy.
Don't bow to your digital addiction. The times they are changing. They've evaporated into nothing. Faded into the upholstery of a rusted out car. We're driving down one giant regurgitated highway. That's the time to drink the water. Watch the night rise. We are in the moment. That's the time to drink the water. Watch the night rise. We are in the moment. I ate the wind as it was my life. I swam, I crawled, I walked, I ran, traveling the earth in search of meaning, tasting the night like a crisp champagne. That's the time to drink the water, watch the night rise. We are in the moment. That's the time to drink the water, watch the night rise. We are in the moment. Obsidian daydream, I was lost in you. The wind came, all blowing back into my face. I narrowly escaped you. Don't kill Alright, welcome back to Songs of Selah here on 17 Numa Radio. Thanks for joining me this evening. That was Obsidian Daydream by Spectralux. And coming up next, we're going to have two members from the band, Peter Rowitz and Peter Norman, joining us to talk about that track and many others from their upcoming album and past releases. So formed in 1999 against the grain of a burgeoning U.S. alternative music scene, Spectralux has stood the test of time, evolving like Beck or David Bowie. The band stands poised to embark on new endeavors in 2018 and beyond. The current songs and their lyrical content reflect today's liquid culture. So, I'd like to welcome to the show Peter Rowitz.
Hello.
Hey, Peter, how are you?
Good, how are you, buddy? Peter's here as well, Peter Norman.
Yeah,
This
yeah
is
Peter
a
Norman there as well.
phone call.
Right on. We're going to try and make this work and see if I can keep y'all's names straight this evening. Thanks for coming on, guys. How are things going this evening here in the rainy city of Atlanta?
It is cold. Cold. Very cold here. And rainy. Here in Atlanta.
And it will be all week.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, we're just... Hey, the song sounded great. Really did.
Good deal, yeah, man. I've been enjoying listening to those tracks that you sent over, and we'll play a few more of them here as the night goes on.
Awesome.
What's the name of that
we had
new album?
talked. See the Colors You've Ignored Forever, which was essentially a short poem I got from a friend who is terminally ill. And I told him, hey, listen, I'm going to name this record after you.
Okay.
That's how that went down. When you get to a certain point in life, you're kind of, forced to recognize the things that you didn't see before, the beautiful things. So
it's like it's a perspective shift.
It is a perspective shift, which is what our culture is going through right now. It's kind of a real transition, socially and culturally, from maybe the old world to the new world. America's.
Some people would see that as a good thing, which it definitely is. Some people would see it as a bad thing. Others see it as an awakening of sorts. The human race is going to continue to survive. We're just learning something in our culture right now that will hopefully, I think, optimistically just aid in that growth process of everyone as a whole.
It's a transitional phase that we're going through culturally, and that's really what the recording, the lyrical content, and Peter does a lot of the arranging and helps with everything really. We're a unit. He's my Bernie Taupin, so or vice versa. But yeah, so we the overarching themes that really occur within this new work really are about the cultural shift and the cultural dynamic, the paradigm switching and changing, from the old to the new. Even in our personal lives, a lot of growth has happened, going from being reckless and wild artists to being having to,
You see it in art. That's what we were talking about on the. We were having this conversation the other day on the phone.
Yeah.
You can see, there's so many examples. The Star Wars coming out, all the old, Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, they're dying off. It's all about ushering in a new story there. You have the new rendition of A Star Is Born. One of the main song lyrics, maybe it's time to let the old ways die. These are movies that are coming out within a couple of years of, you can look to film and see the trend. But, you can see it in art. Art is the best window into what our culture is going through, I think.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just reading, the other day, The Fountainhead again, the Ayn Rand book. And there's a character in there, Howard Rourke. And essentially he's this free thinker. He's this artist, he's going to, take over with his free thinking ideals. And then he runs straight into a wall which is the establishment. And they say, hey, listen, your architecture, needs to be more mainlined. It needs to be more streamlined. We don't know about this stuff that's really out there. And so it's like, again, another the theme to that being the old versus the new versus the old and vice versa. And then you have this, they play off of each other, they fight each other. And eventually what happens is they meld together. So sometimes I think it's unfortunate for me to have been born in this period because I'm like, I wish I could be born 20, 30, 40 years from now where we're one as a culture. It's just the growing pains take time. They're not going to happen overnight. Peace is not going to be achieved, instantaneously. It's a process. And the process, unfortunately, like I was saying, takes a lot of time. So
every society and culture seems to go through these paradigm shifts, as you had mentioned, and it's just it's like a muscle that you have to break down in order for it to build back stronger. It's that going into the chaos and trying to reach a higher state of order collectively, but also, as Peter was saying, it's the individual journey that comes out of that as well, it seems, and we're all reflecting on the things that are going on in society and having our own unique epiphanies and awakenings, as it were. And then for the artists, they're the mirrors, they're the billboards and the neon signs that are sort of paving that path a few steps ahead, hopefully, and being the guide points that point in that direction that you're talking about that's going to come in 30 years or 40 years. And cataclysms going on, but hopefully birthing something more beautiful in the end.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I was this watching something on I think it was online. This girl, she's wanted to be an astronaut. She's been selected to be on the next mission to Mars. Actually, the first mission to Mars. And there was a quote. She said that, you know, we should plant seeds for trees we'll never see the shade of, but that the future generations will be able to enjoy the shade of, knowing that we're not going to be able to enjoy that shade. And so that's where my mindset is in terms of, you know, with our writing and with the music and everything like that. You know, there's always been kind of a deeper line of you know, meaning to the music, and I think it wouldn't have existed for this length of time if there wasn't depth, and depth not only in the physical or the aesthetic nature of the music, or, you know, what it's made of, but also within the characters and a colorful cast of characters I've littered my life with, you know, in terms of the artists that I've been able to work with the music. We're working with an artist now who's a physical artist. You know, she paints and she's amazing. Her name's Caroline Gaze, and she's out of Los Angeles. And if she's listening, what's up? But yeah, she her artwork is you know, transcends time, and so we're able to partner with people like that, and it makes everything so much more rich and with depth, and, you know, and like I'd asked you to come on and do some reading, you know, for the album, but it didn't happen, but hopefully will in the future.
Yeah, would love to do that, for sure. Just unfortunately,
We got,
didn't work
you know,
out.
like the last, yeah. Oh no, in the future for sure. The last recording we did, which was Buffalo Jump, which featured the artwork of Sharon Shapiro. She, you know, is another California artist, and you know, on that record, I had a traditional Peruvian flute player come in, and we put like some interesting, you know, drum work in with his flute playing, and it turned out beautifully.
We gave that an interesting title too, Flute from the Third Eye.
Yeah, Flute from the Third Eye. Yeah. Nice. Which is funny because, you know, the radio station.
You can find that on Spotify.
Yeah, I had initially talked to one of the mainstream radios that does alternative music here in Atlanta, and they'd said, you know, we want to play one of your songs, and they played the flute track. Just, it's cool, it's different, it's multicultural, you know, and so try to involve other aspects of other artists and interject them into the work that we're doing. Not only that, but we have support me and Peter. We've worked with some great producers. Our main producer is this gentleman by the name of Chris Sampson, and he's just an amazing, I call him the maestro, and he whips up. We have a really great working relationship, and Peter Norman also has a good relationship with him, I think personally and professionally.
Yeah, we have a cool community here in East Atlanta Village. For those that are familiar with it, it's like a little cross section. You know, two streets that intersect. There's some cool bars and restaurants, and on the sort of surrounding that, for years has been a really good eclectic mix of really, really talented musicians, and, you know, there's people in film and other areas of art, and it's very collaborative. And, you know, Atlanta's gone through some changes and some growth spurts itself recently, and so things have sort of been developed where we used to have a rehearsal space, for example, that, you know, where people would commune, and they tore that down and made some, development there. And so now that's gone. East Atlanta is cool because it's one of the last neighborhoods in Atlanta to where we're like, no, we're going to keep this sort of the way it is for the most part. And, a good balance of like new construction and new families moving in, and also like the old art culture. So we get to preserve that. And yeah, so me and Chris live right down the street from each other, and we got some other folks around here, don't we, Peter?
Yeah, we've got Mama Bear, which is are friends of ours. I grew up in the same neighborhood. I'm going to see if Kyle would be interested in actually coming on the show with you. I know we wanted to initially do a live performance, which maybe in the future we can. Well,
it's not a rare occurrence that when either one of us, whether it's us doing our record or Mama Bear doing a record or some, Chris working with somebody and they need somebody on the fly, like, hey, can you come over and do like a backing vocal? And so we'll have.
That's Sammy Mickelson. Yes.
Yeah.
She worked with. I think they did a little sample of hers. Post Malone used that on the. When he came out, it was like on a little interlude thing before she came out on stage.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so she's on all over this record. I should mention her. She's got a band called Alchemy. She does work, studio musician work. I think she's been on tour with Mother's Finest, which is a touring jam band, kind of like they're in the vein of Widespread Panic. And she's been on tour as a vocalist, supporting vocalist for Mother's Finest. And I don't know, she might be on some upcoming recordings with them. She does a lot of session work. And there's some other, I think somehow we're connected with a bunch of different artists, because it's like Peter was saying, there's an eclectic group of musicians around him and that we've kind of worked with over the years. We built a relationship with them.
Well, that's one of the great things about music and art in general is that collaborative nature and playing off of the different energies. And I know with the poetry, I write a lot of ekphrastic poems where I'm interacting with different painters and photograph digital artists and everything of that nature, and just writing responses to their work or collaborating with them on covers or work that appears in the books. And it's just the responses that you get feeding off of each other is one of that's what gets the neurons firing and the blood flowing. It's great stuff. And so any of those other musicians that you talked about, I'd love to have them on the show as well at some point in the future. It's what I'm trying to do here is just give a voice to artists, especially here in the Atlanta area, for sure.
Yeah, they'd love to do that, I'm sure. Pete, I'm sure, will put Kyle in touch with you. But yeah, it'd be cool. I'm excited about everything that we're doing. In terms of music, and we couldn't put it out fast enough, and that's part of I guess that's the dilemma as an artist. And that's one of the reasons that I could never really, or at this point as of yet, haven't broken through to like. But again, back to the Ayn Rand analogy I was using earlier. It's like you've got these creative things just bursting out of you, and you have to get them down and record them, and you feel the need to move on once you've completed that work, and so there's been opportunities in my life and in the life of the band Spectralux to go more mainstream, but I feel like we try to keep some kind of pop sensibilities with the music, but at the same time kind of keeping the originality of our sound. So we haven't been put into a box, which has been great. I think that's another reason the longevity has exists because, we don't have anybody telling us how to make music or what we should make. I like to make stuff that's palatable to people, to a group of whoever it may be, or even to ourselves, that's enjoyable to listen to or that's relatable, has a meaning, personally or globally. And, that's one of the reasons we've been able to survive, really, is just keeping the originality, and it's it goes through different evolves and changes, and I'm excited about
other bands that are getting, and long gone are the days where, we just saw Bohemian Rhapsody, incredible movie, big fan of Queen.
Oh yeah.
And Freddie Mercury is awesome, really, really well done, but it showed that time in music where, you're in an office and there's a guy at a desk, and, there's gold records on the wall, and you're getting these, you're getting all this money to do this record, and you're trying to sell to the guy what kind of record it's going to be and if he wants to release it or not. That doesn't happen. But to the 1% of artists, there's 1% that still live in that, but it's very, it's not the business as a whole anymore. Nowadays you got to do it because you want to do it. It's what you want to do with your spare time. You have to also do it with very minimal stuff, because you're not getting the big studio deals. You're working usually out of a studio that you've invested and built over the years, or you're getting studio time in blocks, over a span of time. What's cool about Spectralux is we can kind of do both. So a lot of our music has electronic elements, and Spectralux, what attracted me to the band 10 years ago was how well they were able to mix analog and digital elements together. It's kind of what got me into that. So when I arrange and compose the songs, I can arrange them in the comfort of my own studio here at home, and then send them out through a Google Drive. You didn't used to have Google Drive. You had to put it on a hard drive and send it over. Now you've got Google Drive, and it's got 15 gigabytes of free space. And now all of a sudden, we're more efficient. We can use this minimal stuff. We can put it on a hard drive. It can be downloaded from the other end in the studio, mixed at Chris's, and then Peter can walk in and write vocals in the studio, like traditionally people would do back in the day. You'd sit in the studio, you'd listen to your stuff back, and write lyrics, and then we can come in with Chris in his studio, and we can cut guitars and bass and backing vocals, anything. But a lot of the original main composition of the music I can do here. So what's cool about not having that big deal to where you're like a kid in a candy store in a studio, it's like you have to get more creative. So we've done the last 3 records like that, right? 3 records?
Yeah.
This one in the past 2?
Yeah, the last 3, I think. Yeah, before that, it was the first thing we ever did was on tape, cassette, reel to reel, and back then it was,
glory days.
The glory days. I mean, it was, playing in front of 400 people here in Atlanta, making some money. There weren't a lot of bands, but now it's along with the technology, you also have drawbacks, which would be, you have, every time I get online, it seems like, which is multiple times a day, which is, I think, the norm. I see an advertisement for a band or an artist, and the stimulus is just it's over. I have to turn off my technology because I'm checking out bands left and right, and I'm like, wow, what was that 5th band I listened to, the first one out of the 5 before? 10, 15, even 10 years ago, here in Atlanta, there were, you knew all the local bands. We knew each other. Now there's countless, and you could be a band that, like Peter was saying, you can record out of your home studio, and so we do a mix of the analog and the digital. So where we actually are in a traditional studio setting, and it's worked out great. It's the songs have depth because you're working. Sometimes we'll work with analog equipment. Well, a lot of times guitars and. There's an 8-track Chris has, which other acts, like I think He's worked with Deer Hunter and some of those other acts, which, so we all used to be in the same circle of artists, but now it's just exploded, and here we are.
What was the gestation period on this latest album? When did you first come up with the idea or the theme of it, and how long was that process?
This recording session, it's almost been like a continuous recording session since 2015, so almost 4 years now. I think we have another album, another full recording, which is completed songs that we decided not to put, which some of are great. There's a couple that are missing vocal tracks and that we need to go back and work on. But, in this batch, there was probably 20 tracks, and so we narrowed it down to, I believe there's 10 or 11 on this new one, which includes, a couple of instrumental. And we've gotten better at our craft over time, meaning, before, if you look back at Nexus, which was in 2016, there's 16 tracks on that, and it's too many. We're living in a singles market right now. Very much metaphorically speaking to the 1980s, where you had singles, which is it's a weird paradox because you have people only want to hear one song; they don't have the attention span. But it was kind of like that in the 80s. But then you didn't have the luxury of just buying one track. You had to buy the whole, recording. And then I think in the 90s there was like cassette singles where you could actually buy one or two songs. That still was $3 or $4. But now it's, again, the world has completely changed. So there were 20 tracks. We got down to 10 or 11, and those tracks really were we looked for, similar theme to the songs and songs that would flow together. And as we were wrapping things up, it became more apparent which songs we needed to focus on more, which songs were stronger, which songs, kind of let's generate a theme here. And this recording is not as thematic as the last recording, which was kind of an ode to Native American instrumentation and Native American influence and Buffalo Jump. From the cover of that recording, which was done by Sharon Shapiro, to the music that's on there, it kind of has like an organic-y, the lyrical content is organic-y. There's a lot of guitars and the flutes. And on this recording, I think it's a little bit more modern. There's some pop punk sensibility, like with Obsidian Daydream, which would have been popular probably in the 90s. And then there's stuff will be relevant next year that's on the recording. So like we try to push the envelope as much as possible. And then sometimes it doesn't make sense and you have to reel yourself back in and say, what makes sense here as an artist?
Yeah, and that's what takes me back to that conversation I was having about having minimal stuff.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like what sounds good is a expensive, nice instrument, preferably built back in the 60s or 70s, through a really nice amplifier into a really nice mic.
There you go.
There's just no substitute for that. So at the end of the day, you just got to make that happen.
I agree. I mean, you look at which I think was a brilliant film, the Lady Gaga film. That she just put out, A Star Is Born, the remake. You have sheer talent these days, and then you have, I consider myself mediocre. Like, I have a good stage presence. I can kind of move around. I've got my style. You've got artists like that. these days that aren't as prevalent. What you have now, you have you can throw a few of those in the mix. You had a Lady Gaga's, which are extremely talented all around, can look at the audience and play the instrument without looking. Peter's actually like that. Peter's an ingenue when it comes to musicianship, Peter Norman. And then you have our other artists these days that, hey, they'll spend like 3 hours in $1 million studio, throw some auto-tune on there, and then just they walk out with their, expensive clothes out the studio after a few hours and let the producer make all the music, and they're paying millions of dollars. I don't even know what Justin Bieber sounds like anymore. I'm like, does he? I mean, I know he's got a good voice, good solid voice, but now you've got all these, the only development you have really actually are like the talent shows on television. Like
yeah, you can hear it though. So in his voice, I think he has a great. We're talking about Justin Bieber now. It's great. So you can hear it in that music where the waveform has been like really perfectly sliced. There's no hiccup or crackle in between phrasing.
Like natural breathing.
Like natural breathing. Like it's all like sharp and.
It's perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
So if you take a Lady Gaga, who I really love, that's actually the back to Spectralux. That's kind of my model, even though I was making music before she was around. Kind of what you inspire yourself as artists. Back and forth. It's a tete-a-tete, and so I feel like with her, she's inspired me. That's why I'm going with more of a stripped down show, electronic kind of a thing with the performances I'll do in 2019. There's an opportunity for other artists that are other members of the band to, come and play, but I think I'm going to go with more of a modern approach, which is costuming, lighting, the music, all our original music, played maybe along with live music, so it's a more modern, that's what I'm feeling as far as, like performance art more so is what it will be, as opposed to like, it's very difficult at this day and age to put together 4 to 6 guys, get on stage, play 3 days a week. The practice spaces in Atlanta have become really limited, within the last few years. And they've gotten rid of a lot of the old establishments, and so you have a lot of mixed use developing. There's not a lot of garage type spaces for artists to rehearse in Atlanta. That will change in time as things age, as it will change. The housing costs are through the roof now. Once those come down, you'll be able to. I can't afford right now $500 a month to pay for a rehearsal spot, which is an option. We could do that, and then you have to try to get the guys together twice a week with all their busy schedules. But yeah, I think the space where Mastodon, they're like a metal band practices. There's openings there, but again, it's a matter of you can almost rehearse at home now, along with recording your music at home and take it straight out to the venue and perform, as opposed to it was a lengthier process before. I was thinking recently that I would love to have like a studio space. Huh? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, I'd love to have a studio space to do painting, because I'm also a painter, and to do conceptual paintings that I do and performance art and that kind of thing. But the cost of real estate is rather high. I remember I had a space. Well, the band has had quite a few spaces, but I had a space particularly on the west side probably about 15 years ago. I shared with some other artists, and it a lot of that was experimentation. A lot of it, involved like late night clubbing and dance parties, but then also we would get into doing performance art, and then did some physical painting and on canvas and giant canvas. So I love that kind of thing. I love the artistry, the community involved with the arts, and it seems like it's narrowed within the Atlanta realm down to like East Atlanta, as Peter was saying. Atlanta's really, really grown and been claimed, I think, as more hip hop kind of a R&B and hip hop, and which I enjoy that genre as well. But there's more avenues for that type of music, I think, in Atlanta. There are still avenues but it's all transitional. The popular music now is more R&B and hip hop. That's what, that's what's more popular, so more prevalent. So as it trickles down, you're going to have, more of a presence of, hey, I work with guys, and they're, in a day job, and they're, trying to go into like rapping or, in that kind of thing, in that genre. And you make some beats and sing over it. And that's kind of where I'm going, with the music that I'm doing is that we've created for this latest recording. I think I'm going to do like a medley of past tracks that were, somewhat, I guess, successful amongst our peer group, and do like a review live and have some crazy costumes. I'm one for dressing up. That's where the Lady Gaga comes in, creating a costume, and the music is kind of a theme to that. We saw that with when we performed Black Sparrow, which was on a couple records ago. I kind of dressed up like a Black Sparrow in it with a costume and performed the track. So.
Yeah, and at the end you flew away.
Did I?
Yeah, you flapped your wings and flew out the door. It was amazing.
So stuff like that is people appreciate that performance art aspect. That you have to give. I feel like as we progress as a culture, people want to see not only they want they want that edge, they want that extra in their performance.
Well, you had mentioned
so I thought it was amazing.
And seeing 100 different bands in the span of an hour or something, just because there's so many people out there doing it. So you have to have some way to cut through that and bring your uniqueness to it, and sort of separate yourself from the pack in a way. And I think that's where it comes in, the performance art that you're talking about, and just giving something
you see it
a little bit above.
Like MGMT, they're or I guess one of our biggest inspirations within the last few years has been Empire of the Sun. So we that's what me personally, and Peter loves that kind of stuff
That's
too.
one of the best live shows I've ever seen. I saw him at the Tabernacle here in Atlanta. It was amazing.
I missed that show, unfortunately.
Going out here in 2019 to start promoting the album. Where are some of the places that you're looking to perform at?
Well, I'm developing an online presence now. I'm working on that aspect. I could probably jump in and perform, or we could perform, meaning other members at the Earl or the Drunken Unicorn. But I was trying to partner with more of a national act and kind of go and do like 7 songs before them. So I'm kind of working that up. I've got some videos in production. We do have quite a few videos, Spectralux videos online. I think there's 8 to 10 different, maybe 7 to 10. different videos that we've had produced, and I'm working on some new videos for these tracks. Of course, they'll be played on. They've been played already on some of the like Album 88. They played a couple songs, and I'm going to try to get work in that angle a little bit. And I think really what's important these days is the online presence. People see that, and so to try to develop that is there. Of course, for me, it's always about the song and the music. It was always where all the emphasis went into. So I actually am having to pull back from recording and say, hey, let's try to put this, let's try to showcase this music that we have, these last 3 albums. So out of we've recorded probably 60 tracks within the last 4 years. We've released we've 35 on Buffalo Jump and Nexus, which were the last 2 records, and then 10. So we've released maybe 40, 45.
Yeah, a lot of music.
And so I'm going to do 4 or 5 songs from the other records, and then probably 4 tracks from the other 2, and then 4 from the new recording. Even though, this new recording is probably our best to date. And so I really should play more songs off of it, but I think we have such a, like I was saying, like a repertoire of good songs that I'm going to reach back and kind of do, and then Peter is really good at doing remixes. And so I'm going to be performing the Crazy Wind remix live, and then he's working on another one as we speak. I've partnered with some other younger artists that I've actually was talking to yesterday about doing some performing at like iDrum and other venues that are really artistic. Art is first on the west side, some venues like that, and I've been talking to them about that. A couple younger guys, and so hopefully that will work out. Try to introduce the music to a younger generation, and that's all you can do as an artist. I could invest $50,000 maybe into promotion, but I feel like style has always been the more organic route. I may do some crowdfunding in the future to fund. I want to print off this new recording on vinyl, which is rather pricey. But I'm looking forward to what we have to offer in the future. I'm actually going to do a single over the holidays, early next year, which Johnny Whiteside has been a big contributor, and Jeff Cobb as well down in East Point. But Johnny, these new tracks and off the last record, he's been so, involved, and Johnny is classically trained. I've had the pleasure to work with some brilliant artists and musicians. Peter Norman, here on the line with me, is one of them. He can pick up a guitar and and Johnny Whiteside is equally as talented. So Johnny's provided music and been there for support and added guitar, as well as Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb is one of the original members of the band, and he kind of has been on hiatus the last year or two. He wrote some of the tracks on the last 2 recordings, but I don't think he was
pops
involved.
his head in on every record.
Every record.
He at least comes in, and that song, I don't know if you're going to play it tonight, but Owl Eyes, that was a really fun collaboration.
Oh, yeah, that's a great track.
Yeah, so that started out, I wrote it at my house.
Yeah.
Did a quick composition, took it over to Chris Sampson's studio, and Chris Sampson used to play guitar for Ponderosa a while ago. I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but
no, Ponderosa. I don't have Owl Eyes here in the studio, but I do have. Let me see. Maybe we could go to a track here in a minute. I've got Flamingo Shadows.
Perfect.
This Is My Life.
That sounds good.
Flamingo Shadows. You want me to play that one?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, cool. And we'll come back and talk about this particular track after we listen to it.
Okay.
So we'll be back here.
Awesome.
Just a couple minutes. Here's Flamingo Shadows.
Thank you.
Back here on Songs of Selah on 17 Numa Radio, talking with Peter Rowitz and Peter Norman of the band Spectralux, and that was their song off their upcoming album called Flamingo Shadows. Good stuff, guys. Was that is that a mandolin I heard there in the middle of the song?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Dig that.
Yeah. Cool. Mandolin. You had the
Yeah, you've got
the Chinese
that song
thing.
Yeah, it's sort of like a
String instrument. It's a Chinese string instrument.
Right. Yeah, man, that was enjoyed that one. So yeah, we're talking about your new album and looking for plans in 2019 to get out there and put on some shows here in Atlanta. Hopefully, branch out from there as well. I've listened to several of the tracks that you sent over. I'm digging all of it. And you had talked about your videos that you've made. Wanted to mention to anyone out there listening on the Blog Talk link. There's a link in the show description to the Spectralux YouTube channel, and also a link there to their iTunes page where you can pick up some of the singles and albums there as well.
We'll have the
anywhere else?
new tracks. So we'll have the new tracks available probably. I'm thinking this probably early January is when this will probably be released.
Yeah, we're gonna start off releasing sort of a few singles first. That's sort of the way that music is being consumed. It's like you can't feed somebody more than they can consume, which has grown over time, and now everything's instant. So the model has been, throw out some appetizers and then serve up the main course later.
Serve up the steak after the shrimp crab.
Yeah. And biscuits, boy.
The biscuits. The biscuits.
Absolutely. I think
who has the best
gets back
biscuits?
to what you were talking about earlier. Just building that grassroots type of energy and getting people on board with it before the train gets rolling fully along. So I think that's a good game plan for sure.
Yeah. It's the way to go. It really is in this modern age. The song that you just played, Flamingo Shadows, really Mother Nature and how we've degraded Mother Nature quite a bit over time. And watching these tropical fish eating Chinese food and sitting there thinking, this is, is this the meaning of my life? Is this, what else is there? So, those contemplative, reflective, philosophical type of questions have always existed within the lyrical content of our music. But
you said, well, I guess what goes on after this? Eating Chinese food, and you're like, well, maybe we could go get some ice cream, right? And that's
maybe.
An optimistic uptick. I feel like the record has too, and that song in particular, is that. The way that the end of the song with the crescendo on the strings has a very major uplift to the music.
Right. You would think it would go down.
Yeah, you'd think it would go down, but the major lifts, and it ends on a really spectacular note there too, with that ending sort of shimmer that winds down into nothing that Chris put on there. This was a really cool, as far as like the music and the underlying composition was a really cool collaboration with Chris Sampson. And funny story to that track is, a lot of what you heard was, in the beginning and like the rain sort of like coming out of this like, before there was light state of just, sort of this echo and this void, and then just this wow in the beginning is like all of a sudden there's like, sort of creation, I guess in a biblical sense of just, and then there was light to this place, and it kind of goes through. So it's really like the composition itself was really like, I tried to mimic, growing up and going through, your adolescent years and going to your 20s and getting married, and like what that would sound like And I kind of like just went. I remember I worked like 5 hours straight, just no, just absolute focus on this. And I bounced it down to wave format, and I bounced the master. So that's all tracks, right, in the master track. And then I forget what happened. I came back and I quit out of the program. Ableton, I used Ableton to compose a lot of this, and I realized that I never saved it. And so when I quit, I abandoned all of that work.
Oh, jeez.
but not before bouncing down the master file. So I had that composition the way that I meant it to be before I like had any chance to come back to it. And it was like just that moment, and I took a break. It was over. The moment was over, and I came back, and I wasn't allowed almost to go any further with it or to take anything away from it or add to it. So I sent it, in the only format I had, which was that one wave file, over to Chris, and he weaved it into that finished product. And then Peter, wrote, almost, not like exactly what I was thinking when I was composing it, but sort of in the same vein, contemplating life, it's this, sort of like existence where I'm trying to paint the picture with the music of like, this is what a human life would look like in a song. Peter was like, oh, okay, so what's the meaning of that life that you painted? And so it's kind of a cool collaboration, and it's, to me, it's one of my favorite things that we've actually done.
Very cool. That's a great concept behind that piece. Is that generally the way things work? The music comes first and then the lyrics, or does the music ever get born from a kernel of like the word?
I think it's generally that's how it's done now. When we're all in a room together, sometimes it was born with more in unison.
Yeah, now we have like meetings to where we don't play music, but we talk about music, and Peter will maybe mention a concept that will sort of get my gears turning, and I'll go back to my workspace and crank something out, and it's happened like that. I think
more recently.
Yeah, I would say that the way that we come up with our music is very unconventional, and it's not the way I think normally I would do it in my perfect world. In my perfect world, we'd all be getting paid for our time. We'd all be getting together, and we'd be writing and composing and doing all that in one room, just like you would at a job. You go to a job, you're in an office with people, or you're, in your work environment with people, and you're working together. And I think there's nothing more creative than that. But, there's a lot of band members that are having kids, and there's a lot of I think there's a lot of hurdles as far as the kind of music that we make and like the kind of equipment that we need to really properly rehearse it.
I remember, we played in New York City. Jeff Cobb brings in this vintage analog synthesizer. I think he only had the 106 at this time, maybe it was, anyway, Johnny. And so, bringing these giant synthesizers out on a stage, even at like when we played, I think Lenny's back in the day.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Physical labor.
Yeah. So it's, technology I think is at the point now, not fully, but it's really very, very close to, I can get, I can go on Ableton, I can drop a grid, and I can put in Arturia's VST analog synth package, which isn't cheap, it's an expensive piece of software, but it really recreates a lot of those older synths that you need to, those things need to sit in a studio. They're old and they're touchy, And you know, a lot of times, even live, you see people playing on synthesizers like Nords. Maybe it's encased in like an organ, you know, old wood box, but the innards are just a modern synthesizer. So, you know, I think like having the space to really work out of is important. But it's really cool about like, okay, this is what we have. We want to create. This is, you know, what we have to work with here. You know, what can we make? And we come up with stuff like Flamingo Shadows, you know, which that's pretty fucking awesome for, you know, a few guys that have been playing music for a while to just remember the band The Postal Service. That was their whole thing, is that they did things through man.
I remember, you know, we were recording at one time with this guy named Palmer Wood in East Atlanta. So I go over to track vocals one day, and you know, Palmer has a box of CDs, and it said The Postal Service. And he had done sound at the Earl the night before, and The Postal Service had played, and we had a conversation about it. I said, can I have one of these CDs? He said, yeah, you can have one, but I got to return the box back to the band. They left them last night. This is before Postal Service got really big. And we had a conversation about, he was like, I don't know if this band is what, you know, because they're all electronic, and they come up there with their with the computer on the stage. And at that time, it wasn't cool to have a laptop, you know, on the stage, and there were those old elements kind of fighting that. Now that's become, I think, more commonplace, whereas, you know, back then, and we know what happened to the Postal Service, Death Cab for Cutie, they blew up after they would play in venues like the Earl and that kind of thing, and that style kind of blew up. So some of our you know, writing now is kind of done that way.
Well, I think getting back to the point you were making with all those moving pieces and all that pressure that it puts on, that's part of the experience of being the artist and getting that, getting the diamond from that pressure that's, you know, trying to make the most of what you can with all the moving parts and the variables. And it's part of the fun of the journey itself, pulling those rabbits out of the hat, basically.
It's like an embryonic journey. It really has been. Like music. That's why I've continued, you know, to push forward. You know, I haven't seen the new Neil Armstrong movie, but I hear it's great. And some of those ideals, as you know, you're like an explorer as an artist. You know, you're exploring new bounds and moving in those directions. And that's one of the things that's really kept me going personally, as well as with the music, is being able to create in those new environments, as well as, you know, we used to get into a practice space with all this tons of gear. And you remember that, Pete, when we to play a show, we'd have to have 4 vehicles, load out all these synthesizers.
It wasn't as it's not, our music isn't as plug and play as like punk rock or rock music. You know, you can plug a guitar into a pedal board, into an amp, and turn on the power.
It's like a Phil Spector experience. It's like, you know.
Yeah, it's like you have to have MIDI routing. You know, you've got something that's clocking all your instruments. Somebody's got to keep up with that. I mean, usually, like, you know, if we were, you know, a premium touring band, we would have somebody off stage running a lot of
electronic,
and you know, and things are syncing. Our delay pedals are syncing in time. You know, it's the kind of music it is very
orchestral.
Yeah, it's orchestral and it's symphonic, and it's also cinematic too.
Oh, very.
You know, we don't write. You know, we try and write a song like a writer would write a script. You know, there's not necessarily first chorus verse. You know, the formula. It's like, you know, we want to try and have like development, like character development in our message, and, you know, just the sweeping landscape panoramic shots that you'd see in a film. You know, we want you to hear that. So there's and the good thing about doing music the way we do it is, like, sometimes when you're in a room with a bunch of people, you can't get an idea out. There's just ideas, boom, 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 and sometimes the loudest person wins. Sometimes, you know, you've got to compromise something that would be a good idea. I think sometimes when we can work remote, you know, that's what we do. We work remote. I think that would be like the professional term for the way we write, is we work remote for the most part, you know.
But it's been cool because we've evolved into that. You know, we did everything organically.
We were sort of like, it's sort of like an animal that gets burned out of its natural habitat from wildfires, and it has to adapt, you know, where it finds itself. It's sort of like, you know, there's I mean, we had a rehearsal space for 5 years at this spot, and we had to let it go because the land was bought out, and they put up you know, like I mentioned earlier, they put up apartments. So ever since then, it's been like the demand for rehearsal spaces has gone up, and the availability hasn't always been there. And there is now, but with the high demand, you know, it's just a business. There's going to be higher rents for those spaces because, you know, there's not a lot of people providing it. So we've been forced to just, you know, like, we've been forced out of our natural habitat into an area that isn't necessarily what we want all the time, but we're making it work, and we're still thriving in that environment.
That organic process of adaptation and evolution, it's sometimes you surprise yourself, and the art surprises you, what comes out when you're in those situations. And another surprise is that this hour has flown by. We've got about 2 minutes left in the show, and I just want to thank you both for coming on here. And didn't get to as many songs as I thought we would, but I'll play those in upcoming episodes as well. And I wish y'all the best with this new album when it's released, and definitely hope y'all come back on maybe in early 2019 when those singles start dropping. We can talk about them some more and play some more music, and get some people out to those shows. And I'll definitely be coming out and check it out as well when that tour gets lined up.
Thanks, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming on, and hope y'all have a good evening ahead, and we'll talk to y'all later.
Happy holidays. You too.
Happy holidays.
Bye, Scott. Happy holidays.
Bye. All right, so that was Peter Rowitz and Peter Norman from the Atlanta band Spectralux. I want to thank them for coming on this evening. Really enjoyed that conversation, listening to them talk about the organic growth, how their music has evolved over the years, and listening to those tracks off their upcoming album. And thank you for everyone that's listening out there here on 17 Numa Radio. Once again, if you would, please hit that subscribe button and get in the loop for upcoming shows. We've got Don Biakez, the poet from Cape Town, South Africa, coming on the show next Wednesday on the 21st, so I hope you'll tune in again and listen to that episode. And we're going to be talking about his latest book, also future projects. So hope everyone has a good rest of the week out there. Cheers and Selah.
Point out the colors of you, I see them too, and boy, I like them, I like them, I like them. We way too fly to partake in all this hate, we out here vibing, we vibing, we vibing.
Alexa, play Ariana Grande.
Okay.
With Amazon Music, a voice is all you need. Get tens of millions of songs. Download the Amazon Music app today.